I was looking for my phone charger in my jacket when I felt the crumpled piece of paper. It was stuck in the inside pocket of my leather jacket, the one I'd let my wife Emma borrow last weekend for her girls' trip to Chicago. She'd said the weather was supposed to be cold, and she needed something warmer than her thin coat. The paper was a hotel receipt from the Marriott downtown Chicago. Emma had stayed there during her weekend with the ladies, so finding it wasn't surprising. What was surprising was the name on the receipt, Mr. and Mrs. David Thompson. David Thompson, I knew that name. My hands started shaking as I read the details. 2-night stay, October 14th through 16th. Premium suite. Room service charges for champagne and strawberries. Spa services for 2. Late checkout on Sunday. David Thompson was my brother. Emma had told me she was going to Chicago for her college friend Sarah's bachelorette party. She'd shown me photos on social media of the group at dinner, at a wine tasting, at some trendy rooftop bar. I'd been happy she was having fun with her old friends, getting a break from our routine. But according to this receipt, she hadn't been with her college friends. She'd been at the Marriott with my brother David, registered as his wife. I sat down heavily on our bed, staring at the receipt. David lived in Chicago. David who'd been divorced for 2 years. David who'd always had a complicated relationship with boundaries. David who'd made inappropriate comments about Emma at family gatherings. Comments I'd always dismissed as his crude sense of humor. David who'd apparently spent a romantic weekend with my wife while I thought she was celebrating someone else's engagement. I called the hotel. "Yes, I'm calling about a recent stay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "David Thompson, October 14th through 16th. Premium suite." "One moment, sir." The receptionist typed on her keyboard. "Yes, I see the reservation. How can I help you?" "I just need to confirm the guest details. Was Mr. Thompson traveling alone?" "No, sir. The reservation was for 2 guests, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson." "And they stayed both nights?" "Yes, sir. They checked out on Sunday morning around 11 a.m. I hung up and immediately called David. "Hey, little brother," he answered on the second ring. "What's up?" "David, where were you last weekend?" A pause. "Why?" "Just answer the question." "I was around. Why are you asking?" "Were you at the Marriott downtown with Emma?" The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. "David? How did you find out?" The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. "So it's true." "Listen, it's not what you think." "It's not what I think?" "David, you spent 2 nights in a hotel suite with my wife, registered as Mr. and Mrs. Thompson. What exactly should I be thinking?" "We need to talk in person. This is too complicated for a phone call." "No, we're talking now. How long has this been going on?" Another long pause. "About 8 months." 8 months. I thought about the last 8 months of my marriage. Emma's new interest in weekend trips. Her sudden enthusiasm for visiting Chicago. The way she'd light up when David called during family dinners. The inside jokes they'd started sharing that I wasn't part of. "Are you in love with her?" "Yes." "Is she in love with you?" "Yes." 2 simple words that destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. The bachelorette party was real. But Emma left early, said she had a migraine. She came to my place instead. "And you decided to take her to a hotel and pretend to be married?" "She wanted to feel like we could be a real couple just for 1 weekend. She wanted to know what it would be like if things were different. If things were different. Like if she weren't married to me." I hung up and immediately tried calling Emma. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. I looked around our bedroom, this space we'd shared for 4 years of marriage, and started seeing it differently. Emma's side of the closet had fewer clothes than usual. Her jewelry box was missing several pieces I'd given her for anniversaries and birthdays. Her photo collection on the dresser had been subtly rearranged, with pictures of us pushed to the back and pictures of her alone or with friends moved to the front. She'd been preparing to leave and I'd been too oblivious to notice. I drove to David's apartment in Chicago that afternoon. 3 hours of highway gave me time to process what I was about to face. My wife and my brother. My brother and my wife. The 2 people I trusted most in the world had been betraying me for 8 months. David answered the door looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Where is she?" I asked. "She's not here. But she's staying here. Sometimes." I pushed past him into the apartment. It was obvious Emma had been living there part-time. Her coffee mug on the counter. Her book on the coffee table. Her slippers by the couch. Her toothbrush in the bathroom. "How did it start?" I asked, sitting down across from him in his living room. David rubbed his face with his hands. Remember my divorce party? When Carol left and you guys came to help me through it? I remembered. Emma had insisted we drive to Chicago to support David through his depression after his wife left him for her personal trainer. We'd spent the weekend cleaning his apartment, cooking meals, trying to cheer him up. Emma stayed to help me organize my finances while you drove back Sunday for that work conference. She stayed one extra night. She stayed 3 extra nights. And during those 3 nights, we talked more honestly than I'd talked to anyone in years. About marriage, about loneliness, about feeling trapped in lives that looked good from the outside but felt empty inside. So you decided to sleep with my wife. It wasn't like that. Nothing physical happened that week. But something changed between us. We started texting more, calling each other. She'd drive up here when she needed to get away from everything. From me, when she needed to get away from me. From the life she felt like she was sleepwalking through. I wanted to be angry, but the words hit too close to home. Emma had seemed distant for the past year, going through the motions of our marriage without much enthusiasm. I'd attributed it to work stress, to her father's death, to the general challenges of long-term relationships. I'd never considered that she was falling in love with someone else, especially not my brother. When did it become physical? 4 months ago. She came up here after a fight with you about starting a family. I remembered that fight. Emma had been resistant to having children, said she wasn't ready, needed more time. I'd been frustrated, felt like she was always putting off important decisions. She'd stormed out of the house, said she needed space to think. She drove straight here and showed up at 2 a.m. crying. We talked all night, and in the morning, he trailed off. In the morning, you slept with my wife. In the morning, we realized we were in love with each other. David, she's my wife. She's been my wife for 4 years. We have a history, a home, a life together. A life she's been unhappy in for over a year. So instead of talking to me about it, she started an affair with my brother. She tried talking to you. She tried suggesting counseling, date nights, weekend getaways. But you were always too busy with work, too focused on your 5-year plan, too sure that everything was fine. That stung because it was partially true. I had been focused on my career lately. I had been dismissive when Emma suggested we needed to work on our relationship. I'd thought we were solid, that we'd weather whatever rough patch we were going through. That doesn't justify what you two did. No, it doesn't. But it explains why it happened. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. David told me you found the receipt. We need to talk. Where are you? I texted back. At your parents' house. Can you come here? My parents' house. She'd gone to my parents to have this conversation. The drive to my childhood home felt surreal. I was about to confront my wife about her affair with my brother in the living room where we'd spent countless family holidays, where Emma had charmed my parents from the first time I brought her home, where she'd become like a daughter to them. Emma's car was in the driveway next to my mother's sedan. I found them in the kitchen, my mom making tea while Emma sat at the counter crying. Michael, my mom said when she saw me, I think you all need to have a conversation. You told her? Emma nodded. I told her everything, about David, about how unhappy I've been about the affair. What did she say? She said she's known something was wrong for months, that she could see I was pulling away from you, from our marriage. I looked at my mother, who'd been married to my father for 32 years. Mom? Sit down, honey. I sat across from Emma at the kitchen counter where we'd had hundreds of casual conversations over the years. She looked exhausted, like someone who'd been carrying a heavy secret for too long. I know you're angry, Emma said. I know you feel betrayed, but I need you to understand that this wasn't about hurting you. Then what was it about? It was about finding someone who saw me for who I really am, not who they wanted me to be. I've always seen you for who you are. Michael, you see the version of me that fits into your life plan. The wife who'll have your children on your timeline, who'll support your career goals, who'll be content with the suburban life you've mapped out for us. What's wrong with that life? Nothing, if it's what both people want. But it's not what I want. So instead of telling me that, you started sleeping with my brother. I tried telling you. Remember when I suggested we take a year to travel before starting a family? You said it was financially irresponsible. When I mentioned feeling stuck in our routine, you bought us a gym membership. When I said I wanted to go back to school, you pointed out how much it would cost. I remembered those conversations, but I'd remembered them differently. I'd thought I was being practical, responsible. I hadn't realized Emma saw my responses as dismissive. Emma, we could have worked through those things. We could have compromised. I didn't want to compromise anymore. I wanted to feel passionate about my life, about my choices. I wanted to feel alive. And David makes you feel alive. Yes, my mother cleared her throat. Emma, tell Michael what you told me about the future. Emma looked down at her hands. I want a divorce, Michael. I want to be with David. I want to start over with someone who loves me for who I am right now, not who I might become. What about what I want? What about our marriage, our vows, our history together? Our history is beautiful, and I'll always cherish it. But I can't keep living a life that doesn't fit me anymore just to honor vows I made when I was a different person. You were the same person 4 years ago. No, I wasn't. I was a person trying to be who everyone expected me to be. Now I know who I actually am. I looked at Emma across the counter and realized she was right. The woman sitting across from me was different from the one I'd married. More confident, more decisive, more honest about what she wanted. I'd been so focused on maintaining our status quo that I'd missed her evolution entirely. What about David? Are you going to marry him? Someday, maybe. But first I need to be divorced and figure out who I am outside of being anyone's wife. The hotel receipt, why did you keep it? I didn't mean to. It was in the jacket pocket and I forgot about it until now. Were you ever going to tell me? Yes. I was working up the courage. The affair with David made me realize how unhappy I'd been. But it also made me realize that staying married to you while being in love with someone else wasn't fair to anyone. My mother reached over and squeezed my hand. Michael, sometimes people grow in different directions. That doesn't make either of you bad people. It makes them people who had an affair. Yes, Emma said. It makes us people who handled this badly. I should have been honest with you about my feelings before I got involved with David. But I was scared of hurting you, scared of blowing up our life, scared of admitting that the marriage I'd worked so hard to build wasn't making me happy. So you decided to blow it up anyway, just 8 months later. I decided to stop pretending, for both our sakes. We talked for 3 more hours in my mother's kitchen. Emma and I cried, argued, tried to understand how we'd gotten so far off track without either of us noticing. We talked about the signs we'd both missed, the conversations we should have had, the different ways we could have handled our growing incompatibility. But we also talked about the relief we both felt now that the truth was out. Emma didn't have to pretend to be happy anymore. I didn't have to wonder why my wife seemed so distant, so uninterested in the future we were supposedly building together. I don't forgive you, I told her as we prepared to leave. I don't know if I ever will, but I understand why you did it. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope someday you'll see that this is better for both of us. The divorce papers were filed 2 weeks later. Emma moved to Chicago permanently to be with David. I kept our house and most of our belongings. We divided our finances and agreed to minimal contact while we both healed from the end of our marriage. 6 months later, my mother told me that Emma and David were engaged. They'd bought a house together in Lincoln Park and were planning a small wedding in the spring. Emma had enrolled in graduate school and was pursuing the degree she'd mentioned wanting years ago. I was angry about the engagement, but I wasn't surprised. What Emma and David had wasn't just an affair. It was a relationship built on their mutual understanding of who they really were, what they really wanted from life. What Emma and I had was a relationship built on who we thought we should be, what we thought we should want. The difference was fundamental and probably insurmountable. A year after the divorce, I started dating someone new. Lisa was different from Emma, more spontaneous, less focused on long-term planning, more interested in adventure than stability. Being with her helped me understand what Emma had meant about feeling alive. I also started to understand that Emma hadn't left me for David. She'd left the version of herself that had been married to me. The woman who'd agreed to our suburban life plan, who'd put her own dreams on hold, who'd tried to be content with contentment. The hotel receipt I found in my jacket pocket was just a piece of paper, but it represented the moment my marriage died and Emma's new life began. It was evidence of a weekend when she'd gotten to be who she really was instead of who she thought she should be. I still don't talk to David. I probably never will. The betrayal of my brother sleeping with my wife is different from the betrayal of my wife falling out of love with me. One was a choice that hurt me. The other was a choice that saved her. The receipt changed everything because it forced all of us to stop pretending. Emma stopped pretending to be happy in our marriage. David stopped pretending he didn't have feelings for her, and I stopped pretending that love was enough to overcome fundamental incompatibility. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if Emma had never borrowed my jacket, if the receipt had been thrown away, if their secret had stayed hidden longer. Would she have eventually found the courage to leave me honestly? Would we have kept sleepwalking through our marriage until we both hated each other? I'll never know. But I do know that the hotel receipt, crumpled and forgotten in a jacket pocket, was the beginning of the end of one life and the beginning of 3 new ones. Sometimes destruction is the only path to authenticity.